Hello, and welcome back to the Onward Shift Podcast. Today we have David with us. And David, you're going to share your story through construction, and I'm excited to hear it. But before we get into the juicy parts, I really want to know who you are. I want to know about your childhood. I want to know about your upbringing. Who is David?
Hello. So, how far do I go back? I had quite an interesting upbringing. Mum and dad were loving. They were the childhood sweethearts, and they fell out of love. Got divorced when I was 5. It was amicable, but I think that probably hit me harder than what I thought. Having a young boy myself, I can only imagine if parents split up when he was 5. Actually, that is quite a detrimental thing to happen. My family, the best will in the world, just kind of patched over it, and it was all okay. And mum and dad still talk and everything like that. But they weren't living in the same house, and my dad wasn't there. And I think that kind of probably started some of them triggers and some of them mental little hiccups that I've probably got along the way, which would be silly things that, as you get older I know you said before you've had therapy, I've had therapy too, things come out and, I'm a people pleaser. I mean, that could stem back from that childhood. I want to be liked. I feel sometimes that people, I try and impress people and if you looked at it hard enough, it could all stem back to that part of my childhood. At such a young age, not having a dad, although he was still around, and it wasn't, it wasn't bad in any way. And I heard your story previously, and as though it's definitely a different situation. It wasn't bad, but it was still detrimental, and it still affected my growth as a boy turning into a man. Went to quite a rough school. I wasn't very academic at all. In my days, I'm 50 on Saturday, and that age, so I was probably be in early 1980s. I would have been going to school, and then senior school in the late 80s. It was quite rough, rough school. They didn't really care too much about the academic. We had in my area, you had things called grammar schools. So you would do the grammar school. If you pass your 11 plus, you go to the top school. If you didn't, you get pushed out with the others. I got the best grade out of all my mates, which was a C in art. So I was the nerd one. So you can imagine how me and my mates really were. Getting into a lot of fights, although I never really wanted to fight, but I just went along with the group. I used to defend people more than fighting them. I've got some quite good friends from points when I was growing up. A lot of it was down to racist attacks, actually, and I end up getting in front of them and sort of defending them, and I was a bit of a vigilante deep down, but on the surface, I was always sort of just trying to go with the groove. Then, yeah, just struggled really with not really fitting in. I didn't want to be a part of the beer culture. I didn't really want to be part of the lads. Didn't really suit me. The fighting, all that kind of thing wasn't really me. So I kept trying to find a different path, but I could never really find it. I then spent most of my 20s traveling. I think I worked out probably about 4.5 to 5 years in my 20s abroad, escaping really. I was trying to escape the UK. I didn't want, again, every time I went back to the UK, I'd get dragged into where I didn't really feel like I fitted in. And then just went, I think I messed about for ages. My stepdad, sorry, was an electrician. My brothers were electricians. I was fighting the draw to the industry, but eventually, after not having a lot of money, my stepdad was like, "You better come to work with me." So I then started my trade as an electrician, and then that paid for me to go travelling. So I would sort of do a bit, go away for 6 months to a year, come back, do a bit, go away, come back, etc. I was a snowboard instructor in Austria for about 3 seasons, which was awesome. Lived in Canada for a year, just messed about really. And then it dawned on me at I think I was about 32, and I had done my last season on the ski hill. And someone said to me, which place along this bar is going to be your seat? I.e., each season you come back and you sit in the same seat, and somebody said, oh, that's Dave's, you better not sit there. And I thought, I can't be this person. I can't, this isn't me. It was fun, but I can't drink myself into oblivion and just not take life seriously and waste time. It wasn't me. It's good for some people, but it wasn't me.
Hmm.
Come home. I'd done one big trip. I knew it was my last one and went out with a big bang. Come home, met my wife-to-be online on Match.com, as it was then for the dating app. Met her, fell in love, took life seriously, went down the management role because I needed to sort of obviously get a bit more of a steady income. And then, that kind of was the start of all the managerial and the stress, really, probably. And it kind of probably brings it quite nicely into probably what the majority of our conversation is going to be.
Well, I've got some questions for you already, Dave, and they are escape. You use that word quite a lot, and I find it really interesting because as a young man, what was you escaping from? What dynamic didn't sit well with you that you just wanted to get away from?
Um, I didn't fit in to the gang that I had adopted. You kind of go through school and you kind of just form a gang, and I just didn't fit in with it. It was, and they probably didn't fit in with it either. It was probably all that, just it was, there was a lot of fighting. It wasn't a pleasant thing. And I think probably hands on hearts, all of them probably didn't feel like they fitted in, and really probably deep down didn't want to go out and get absolutely blasted every night and, get into a scrap or whatever. It wasn't it wasn't me. I cared too much for people, to be honest with you. Deep down, I was a nice guy. Was a nice guy. I am a nice guy. So everything that I was doing growing up, I was kind of almost fighting what naturally who I wanted to be. And I tried to put on this big macho, and I'm not big by any part of the imagination. 5'7", I'm very proud. But yeah, I tried to put on some sort of facade that I was something that I wasn't, and that was difficult. And then because of that, I didn't really know where I fitted, and I kind of lost myself. And then, and I get that is where the escapism is, and I could go abroad to other countries and be probably more who I wanted to be than be at home, because everybody had prejudgments of who I was or what I should be, and I felt that actually when I was abroad, I was more who I wanted to be because it was a fresh start each time.
It's really interesting how we all do those small things to take us away from where we are. I know for me, and this is going to sound really, really like strange and bizarre, but I'll have a shave. And when I mean shave, I'll still have facial hair, but I might trim my beard or I might grow my beard out just to kind of get away from who I was maybe 6 months ago. And it doesn't always have to be a negative thing. Sometimes it's just you need a breath of fresh air and you need something new. You need like almost a fresh start. And I can completely relate with that. I'm sure so many people can relate with that. But another thing that's really struck me, which is really fascinating about you, is you spoke about your upbringing and how you still had love and care from both of your parents growing up,
Mm.
even though they were separated. But you become a protector for others. Where did that come from? Have you had some experience in your life where somebody's protected you and you've looked up to them, or where does that come from?
Yeah, I always like the underdog. I always like the one that I remember a fight at school, which was a guy. Probably won't mention his name, but we were good. We were goodish friends, and then everybody started picking on him, and it was like the whole of the school against this one kid, and I was like, no way, I'm going to go on his side. I'm going to defend that guy. Let's have some. And then, then more people, once I made the move, would then start coming over, and then it would be a sort of a bit more of a battle. And I say battle, it really wasn't. It was probably like handbags at dawn, to be honest with you. Um, but I don't know, I really don't know. I don't know. I appreciate the underdog. I like the underdog. I like the ones that are trying to, yeah, the odds are against you. Let's change them odds. Let's help you out. Let's do something. And then that has assisted to where I am now at the ripe age of 50. And then my blueprint for the next 20 years is really exciting.
I'm really excited for you, and we're definitely going to touch on that a bit later for sure. Again, I want to go back to you growing up, and
Stop it.
another thing is just I find I always lead by curiosity, and I'm really curious about this. A lot of boys struggle without having a father figure present, like within the household. And I can only make the assumption, please correct me if I'm wrong, you live more with your mother. Is that true?
I mean, I did have a stepdad, but I mean, I'd doff my cap off to any step parents at all because we were horrible to him. We said some stuff that was really out of order. You're not my dad. How dare you say this? And this man was just trying to put food on our table. We weren't very nice to him. We were very disrespectful to him. And only as a man I can look back and a dad and go, geez, he adopted a family that he didn't need to. So I had a very strong matriarch mum, very strong. Um, I mean, her mum's still alive, thank God, and yes, strong to the end. Very, very strong mindset. Principles have been embedded. Very, very good people. My dad, my mum, and my stepdad. So the foundations to my upbringing are very strong. The only issue I think there was is that, and you can't. People fall out in love. People fall out in love. You can't stop it, and you can't stop your parents from staying together because you think it's good for you. It happens, and I'll sort of go back to your story more. I mean, that's terrible, to lose your father at such a young age. But the weird thing is, I still had my dad, but I didn't have that connection, and that was weird too, And my dad passed away 3 years ago after a very long I'll say self-inflicted, that's a bit mean, but he didn't appreciate his body and didn't understand his illness really, and got sepsis and then went down a really bad spiral from there. But we actually, towards his death, we actually had a brilliant relationship, and weirdly enough, I wouldn't swap that time for any other because we actually got on really well. He had humor. I hadn't seen this side of dad. He's very nervous around us. He's really digging in now. His father passed away when he was 13. So he didn't really know as a man how to handle a son. He had no experience and he was very off. He didn't really know how to cuddle. He didn't really know how to give affection. My poor boy, because of everything that I go overboard. He hates it. I kiss him, wave him goodbye at school and all sorts. And he's, yeah,
Love it.
yeah, he probably would like a bit more distance. But yeah, I mean, it's just your path, isn't it? It doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter, It's just my path. It's just what's made me.
Totally get that. I totally get that. And I guess I really want to deep dive into your construction background. I know how much you love being on the tools and how much you adore adore
I
picking
was
up.
crap. I was terrible. Well, so this is so everybody that I have ever known, ever grown up with, become electricians, and all of them could become electricians under my stepdad, and he was a legend, and he's still alive. He's still a legend, but he's off the tools, and he's just a good, wholesome, hard-working man that 6-7 days a week is not a problem. Night shifts, all kinds. He's constantly working. And he wouldn't be chasing the pound. He'd just be working. He'd do a good job. You get the wages come with it. It wasn't ever a concern, money. He's the sort of guy that would still walk around 2 years later with scrap money that he owes you because he's, that's your money and you will have that, and he will walk around with that money in his back pocket and see you go, I owe you some scrap. You know, yeah, he is and was a legend of electrical. And then there's me, cack-handed, didn't really want to be there, didn't want to do it, but had to do it because it was all around me. I detested it all, really, to be honest with you. And I was cack-handed. I couldn't do things. It was always awkward for me. Um, and then everything then become on price. So everything was all about speed. And I was too conscientious. I wanted to get it right. I didn't want to do half a job and I'd be overly worrying about getting it right and all of this kind of thing. And ended up being slow. And just the pressure, like the stress of trying to get things done in a set amount of time. And it wasn't for me. It just wasn't for me. I like people. I like meeting people and managing people. And that's my strength, and traveling around the world I, bu- I wouldn't go to destinations to see the destinations. I go to meet the family that live around that destination and hopefully get invited in for a cup of tea. That's what I love. I love meeting people. I love hearing people's stories and integrating with them and being a part of it. And that is my strength. And I think probably part of your journey, you've got to realize where your strengths are, and push for them. There was no point in me trying to be the best electrician in the world. I was shit. So I might as well push for the things that I was good at.
Totally understand that. And touching on price work, I actually worked for a huge, huge, huge company doing price work. And you know what? I'll be honest with you, I was good at it and I made quite a bit of money from it, but it exhausts your body. Like it genuinely takes a toll on your body. I was getting in early, working through breaks, staying back late because I wanted to make that pound note. And
Mm,
I ended up getting a repetition strain injury in my shoulder because I was basically doing all the containment for this student accommodation. So my arm
mm,
would just constantly be like that, then banging in the anchors, then the studs, and then the basket or the tray or whatever it was. And yeah, end up doing myself over doing that, and I had to leave the industry. Well, not the industry, leave the install side of the industry and go into testing. And God blimey, is testing boring. Oh my God. As a young man, I was probably only early 20s and I was started going into like doing EICRs and PAT testing. Oh my God. Boy, that's just unbelievable. But so how did you manage to progress up the ladder? Because it is one of the hardest things I believe in construction to go from on the tools to I'm not sure what your journey was. I'm sure you'll share it, but it tends to go supervisor, contracts manager, area manager, regional manager, etc., etc. What does your journey look like, and how did you make it happen?
See, I've always made plans. So I will quite often sit with a 5, 10 year plan. Don't know why I've always done it, but I've done it and I always do it and I always achieve it, which is, you know, yeah, I'm always very proud of that. I'll set myself a target and I'll get there, and that is something to be proud of. And that, that could have been just going to be a ski instructor or whatever, to buying a house, becoming a manager, becoming this. It would always be a long term target. So once I set my sights on something, I'll get it. And I basically I knew, I weirdly enough, I've never worried about money. I've always knew that I'd have money. It's just never concerned me. And I don't know why that is, but I always knew that my path would always give me wealth. Not stupid amounts, but I'd always be comfortable. So I never really had to worry about that element. And I don't know why. It's probably crazy to think like, maybe I should have been up nights worrying about cash, but I've never worried about it because I always knew that I'd have it. Um,
Sorry, just to touch on that section there. Do you think that's come from your stepdad, where he was a grafter, he worked Monday to Sunday, he didn't care about money? Do you think a little bit of that has been embedded into your own culture?
I think I mean, I've always had. So my parents, they gave me like a building society account when I become 21. Not a lot of money. I mean, I would really wish I would spend it a lot wiser than what I did. But I've always had a slush fund. I've always had money either given to me or just in the peripheral. When I was traveling, I knew that I could get money if I needed it, so I didn't really need to worry about it. Um, I just thought I never just never concerned myself with it, and that must be down to the parents and how I've been brought up. I'm not saying they did, and they wouldn't give me the money, and I didn't, but I'd always know if it was there if I needed it. And I always knew that I had a mental buffer when it comes to finances. But yeah, say I haven't really ever needed it. I just always had it in reserve, and that gives you confidence. That is having a good upbringing where they say, look, just do what you want to do. You'll be fine. We'll look after you if there's any problems. And then having that freedom allows you then to spread your wings and go.
So how did you progress then up the ladder? How did you get there?
Put yourself out there, don't you? And I literally just said, I want this role. I want to be a site supervisor working in, I think we were doing schools at the time. So become a supervisor, helping someone out. Intense, really intense. Lots of pressure. But I could see the path. And the problem is I wasn't very good on the tools. So I needed this to work. So it had to work. So there wasn't any two ways about it. I needed this path. I won't paint it in and sort of probably bring up probably what my podcast is about, because this is the start of my story. Really, is there was no support for me as a manager. I'd worked for a reasonably small company, subcontractor, put myself out there to move up the runs, given that responsibility. The first job that I got was to be a site manager for an M&E new build school. That was pretty daunting. I didn't really know anything about mechanical. And they said, right, go up there. The shell of the school's been done. Major builder, well, one of the top dog builders is up there. They build the structure. You've just now got to start fitting it out. I go up there, meet the site manager for the main contractor and just walk through the job. So I went up there on my first day, and anxiety, if I walked in there. And you could just tell, I could tell looking back on it how naive I must have looked, all 5 years, all shiny, hard hat. I look young for my age. I'm quite aware of that. And when I was 30, I would have looked probably 23, 24, maybe, and I turn up on site and the main builder looked me up and down, and he knew my naivety. And he went, we're inside this open core of this, open structure of this school. No internal walls have been built or anything like that. And he's like, so pipe work runs down in here. What size pipe are you using? And I was like, pipe? I was just like, I didn't even have enough. I didn't know anything about mechanics. I couldn't blag it. I had nothing about it. And I just looked at him and went, and I thought, there's no point in lying. I said, I don't know. I'll find out and I'll come back to you. Because I didn't even have enough in me to give it something. I had to just go, I don't know. And he just went, right, okay, got your number, shall we say, and walked away. And that was a tough job. That was a really tough job. I had to lean on the subcontractors a lot to pick up my naivety. And that taught me lessons. You don't bully your contractors. You've got to work with them. You can't be a dictator when you need to rely on these guys. You can't bully them. They've got to be on your side. And I'd have a lot of problems with bringing them subcontractors along for the journey. They've dug me out the crap. They really helped me out here. And when it comes to the signing off the invoices, I'll put, yeah, absolutely no problem at all. Sign off, go. Yeah, thank you. And they weren't taking the mickey. It was what they legitimately were owed. And then he got to the powers of being and like, no, I'm not paying that. Well, I don't know. We've just got this job, and they've helped me to give this to you, and we've got this, and we're all together, and yay. No, we're not. And I was like, yeah, bastards, you know. And then you lose the subcontractors. They don't trust you. They don't trust your word. I'm like, oh, for Christ's sake. So yeah, lots of things like that, and you know, there was never any support. You know, and then I'm
Mm.
just muddling through and just trying to do the best I can with it, and it's very difficult.
David, a question for you then. Do you think subcontractors are slowly walking away from working for bigger companies?
It's the 50 grand loss, isn't it? Now, it's a weird number. I was talking to someone today actually about it, and they weren't working for a big company, but it was the same figure. It's always about 50 grand they get knocked, you know, and I would say quite easy. I know 6 to 7 contractors that have worked around me. Nothing to do with the companies I've worked for. Stories they've come to me and said, "I'm never going to work for them again." You know, they're absolute just done us over. 50 grand. You know, I was speaking to someone today. Same thing. I think it's about 40 odd grand or so. You know, but it's always around about 50 grand that these poor individuals that have just they've done the best they can. Usually, it's down to poor planning by the project management team, you know, and that subcontractor is on the front line dealing with the client, doing that face to face, you know, getting that job over the line, pulling in the hours, pulling in the guys to do the extra shifts, paying his guys out weekly because that's what they demand. He's on 30 plus day terms. And then when it comes to him getting his money, you bastards, that ain't right, is it? That is not right. And I'll defend them to the cows come home. You know, and this is why the company that me and my two partners have started, you know, we don't mess about people's money. You know, and with that, although we are good at what we do, we don't have to be the best. And again, I was talking to someone today is that, you know, they'll take poor project management as long as they get paid. You know,
Mm,
so the actual expectations from a subcontractor are really low. Just give me my money and I'll do the job for
yeah,
you. You know, but if you could give them the money, do the job, but then give them good project management as well, winner, winner,
that's a
chicken
win.
dinner.
Yeah.
Massively, massively. But yeah, it's weird. I don't know if you've ever heard of the 50 grand rule, but it seems to be very common for, you know, medium sized, not I say mediums, I say probably small sized companies that have got, you know, probably, you know, up to 10 guys and they're all subcontracting for this sort of contractor. Yeah, generally, yeah, they'll end up getting about 50 grand. Definitely one time in their career they'll get it. Hopefully not more than that, but sometimes it's 2 or 3 times, which is disgusting.
Yeah. Well, when you think about the mental health implications it has on contractors who don't usually have the mental health support in their teams anyway because they're so small or they're relying on their subcontractors to show up for them, it's just devastating. You know, back in the day when I was doing contracting, I got knocked about 8 grand and it just threw me. It was the first month I went self-employed. I worked for a massive maintenance company in London. They knocked me 8 grand. And I was like, nah. And then all of a sudden, you do smaller projects, and you work your way up. You know, a few of the rewires I do, quick turnarounds. There'll be 3, 4 grand, and that could be 7 day turnaround, and you get paid 50% up front. And you just think to yourself, that's good. And then you go do a bigger rewire, which can be 20, 25 grand. You get a 50% up front, and then you're getting payments all the time. You pretty much say, pay me, and they're like, yeah, cool, give me a few days. And it's in your bank account. And you think to yourself, I don't need the stress of these big companies. I just don't need it. Cash flow is so healthy when you've got lots of small different jobs going on at the same time. I just found cash flow, when you've got the cash, you just feel comfortable with life. But yeah, waiting 30 days. And it's
Oh,
really
it's
interesting.
disgusting.
The 30-day payment term is really interesting because it's not 30 days, is it? It's actually 30 days at the end of the month. So really, if you invoice at the first, you're still going to get paid at the end of next month. So that's actually a 60-day payment term when you think about it, the way they
Yeah,
usually work it.
yeah, 100%. And you know, I know companies that they'll use any excuse not to pay the subbies. So if, for instance, you know, I spoke to a guy today, and you know, I want to be working with him, and I was getting a little bit annoyed because I'd given him a couple of opportunities to come and talk to me about some work coming up. And he was very, I'm a director of a business now. I'm giving you an opportunity. I need you to show me that you want to work for me. So, he we had a couple of dates booked in for a meeting. He'd ignored getting in touch with me. And I'm like, come on, man, like, really want to help you out. You want to work for me? Just give me a message. I'm not a bastard. I just need to, I can only manage what I can manage. You need to tell me if you can't make it or if you're busy, that's fine. But don't ignore me. We're trying to build a relationship here. So I rang him up today. We're meant to have a meeting tomorrow. And I said, look, cards on the table, mate. What is going on? Because I don't appreciate being ignored. I'm trying to build this relationship. And I have to be quite blunt because it is important to have that trust and have that communication. And if I don't explain to him what he's doing wrong, he's then going to go, and he might lose work with me because of it. But he then knows that next time that happens with someone else, he needs to give that little bit of attention. That's all it needs. But I got talking to him today anyway, and he reeled off a few problems that he was having, and I was like, he's a grafter. He's the teams that I work with are the ones that are the directors who end up being dragged down to the tools, and they're doing the weekends and they're doing this, and I'm like, I'm having a go at him for not contacting me, but he's just pulling this job around for this person. He's going up to London to do this. He's treading water. He's really trying, and I just said, apologies. My mentality was meant to be for the best, but I appreciate you're really up against it. But let's put the meeting off to next week, and we'll talk business, and we'll come and work for us, and we'll look after you. But that's just a prime example, isn't it? And that is, it's very difficult for subcontractors, and you've got to appreciate them, and that's always, and because I've been one, and my family have been one, and you just can't. You got to build relationships because you never know, and this has always been my thing. I've always said, and I've said to all my guys, treat subcontractors like you're working for them. And that goes against everything that everybody expects you to say because, they expect you to say, well, they're the subcontractor, they do what you tell them. No, you don't build relationships like that. You build the relationship. You work for I work for you. I give you the information. I give you the drawings. I'm attentive to you. I give you everything that you need. And I don't take it for granted that you're doing me a favour, because you're going to expect it. I can't just go, well, I'm paying you, it's a sodger. That's not building relationships. And then I get loyalty, and that's all I want. I get loyalty, and I get the good guys that want to work for us because I do that. And as I say, it goes against the grain because you're not meant to just, you can't say that. You say that you work for the subcontractor. No, no, you're the top of the food chain. You tell them what's going on. No, you don't build relationships that way.
But I love your ideology of that, and I hope more people listen to that and get inspired by it. But there's a word you used not too long ago, and I really want to hone in on that, and that was the pressure you was under whilst you was a site manager. And I want to go into that story because I think that story is so powerful, and I personally want to listen to it myself. So can we go down that route?
We can do it. Can I just take this point and say I appreciate the fact that you're actually listening to me. I find the reason why it dawned on me the other day, I do my podcast. I'm only sort of 10 episodes in it, and coming on to your one here, it actually mentally has given me so much back because I'm actually can have a conversation with someone for an hour or so about stuff that I really want to talk about. No one else is interested in this conversation. It's a beautiful thing to actually have two people just talking about something quite serious without judgment. And you do it very well. The fact you listen and you've got that beautiful art of going back and just picking up words that I've said. And I think, you are taking it in, which is great. And it makes me feel very good. So I think that's probably the point that we need to say, well done to us.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think it's so important to create that safe environment because we're going to get listeners who listen to this podcast, and it's just genuine, it's authentic. It's not like we've got a script or a list of questions that we're reading out. It's we go with the flow. And I think that's the beauty of podcasts. People listening and they can just pick up parts of it, which I call golden nuggets. Like I
Mm.
listen to Diary of a CEO, which is by Stephen Bartlett, and they're like 2 3 hour episodes sometimes. And out of it, I'll probably pick up like 3 or 4 things which will make me think. And it's just those 3 or 4 things that I need. So yeah, I appreciate you saying that though. And you know, personally, I've very much enjoyed talking to you. So yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you.
No, it's good. It's good, and it's the freedom of communication, and it's something that I've missed out in my life, and I've now doing this kind of thing. I've actually got it in that I can actually just have freedom to talk to people that actually want to listen, and that is something that I've needed in my life. So anyway, I think we stopped flirting with each other now, and we need to get on with it.
I was just about to say this is a bit bromantic, this, but I love it. I love it. Why not? Why not? But tell me your
What,
story.
what
Come
was the
on, Dave.
question anyway? Where did we go? What were we doing?
You spoke.
The
You
pressure.
spoke. Pressure, absolutely. And I want to know your story because it's a powerful story to share. So over to you.
Bucket. The heart attack. I mean that's the end of the story, and let's sort of work our way backwards from that. Physically, so I think I was 39 at the time. I'd done a lot of martial arts, so I was training, I reckon about 4 hours a week. So it's quite intense training, and it was very, very aggressive, like pads, bang, 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 really good, very mentally stimulating, brilliant. Um, I had two young children at the time. I think 1 and 3. I don't think my diet was very good, and I was drinking. I wouldn't say I was drinking excessively, but I was drinking. So that's kind of the physical side of it. I was working up in London. I got parachuted in, so I was actually getting good at what I was doing because I was a lot of reflection on what I'd be doing as a manager. So I'd make mistakes and I reflect on it. I make mistakes or reflect on it. I make mistakes, reflect, grow. I've always overanalyzed it, which is actually a super strength. But um, I was getting good at being a site manager, and I thought I could handle the pressure. They parachuted me into a job that was a nightmare. It was 3 blocks of flats. It was mechanical only, and I was obviously electrical, so it wasn't my forte, shall we say. And each block was at different stages. So you were getting up to your final fix in one block. You're putting your sanitary ware in the second block, and then first block was still doing first fix. So they were finding problems on the final, which I was then trying to deal with them, then go back to the middle block and get ahead of that. So we didn't make that mistake. And then trying to get to the first fix as well. And it was pandemonium. I walked into a meeting with the guy that was meant to be running it, and the site managers, the main contractor hated us, absolutely hated us, lost the faith of the main builder, couldn't stand us. There's lots of lying about when we were going to get things done. And I sat in this meeting with this guy, and the builder was honest. I'd been there for probably about 2 days. It wanted me there because they needed me there, but they hated me at the same time. I mean, you can imagine the stress that was on that job because we were really making mistakes left, right, and centre. Sat in that meeting, and a mate was next to me, and they were aiming all the questions at him, and I was just sort of taking notes. And he was like, "Yep, yep, yep, get that done tomorrow. Yep, 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 do that. Yep, no problem. Have you got this ready? Yeah, yeah, no problem. Yeah, yeah, yep, yep, no problem at all. What about this deadline? Yep, 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 no problem, no problem, no problem. Right, okay, so you're going to have that done ready by that date." Walked out the meeting, looked at him, I went, "You haven't got a clue what you've just agreed to, have you?" He went, "Haven't got a clue." He didn't take any notes, didn't do anything. He was just literally just getting through minute by minute just to get himself through the day. So the stress and strain was on him. He had to get rid of him. I got rid of him. I got rid of all the installers. I got rid of everybody. And then I built the team again. So the ones that I thought that I could trust, I brought them back. So I had to start off a clean sheet, get rid of everyone. Big show for the main contractor that I'm here. I'm taking it all seriously. Got rid of everyone. Brought the ones that I could trust back, and then we started to build it. So you can imagine it is pretty intense. Hopefully, I'm describing it well to paint a good
Sounds
picture.
chaotic.
It was chaotic, although I think I handled it well. But the point of the heart attack. So I trained the night before. Probably had a beer before bed. You know, I mean, bearing in mind, I probably got home from the train station, maybe, say probably about 7, had some dinner, went training, maybe had a beer at 9:30, bed, up at 5, coffee, say, a toasty or whatever before, got on the train at 5:30, up to Fenchurch Street, tube, people, noise, rah, like lots going on, coffee, another bacon roll, whatever it was. So bad diet. I had a meeting with someone that I knew was going to be volatile. I knew this was going to be a problematic meeting. I was worried about it. I don't like confrontation. It worries me. I hate it. It gives me anxiety. And I knew this was coming. Had the meeting with the guy at 9 in the morning, and it got fiery. It wasn't fisticuffs. It wasn't, it was just two men rearing up a bit. I walked away and it calmed down. But before that, I had that adrenaline drop. So I knew that I was heightened. I probably lost the color of my skin. When you go in that real fight or flight mode, and I felt that, although nothing come to blows. It was a conversation that got elevated quite severely. I then just need to go and get some air. Went out, went to the shop, got a can of Coke. So again, great diet, bacon roll with ketchup and brown sauce. Apparently that's frowned upon, but it's the great combo. Started chowing down that, had the Coke, went to the supermarket, probably to go and get a dessert of a chocolate bar. And then just started feeling a numbness in my hand. I was like, what the hell is this? And started feeling a bit weird. And then obviously Google doctor and sort of looked at it, and he was like, left hand heart attack. So, whoa, geez, really? So I went back to site, and my number 2 was there, and I was really coy about it. And I was like, I think I'm having a heart attack. He was like, what? Then he's like, right, I'm going to get some aspirin. Took these aspirin, took it. But I didn't want to make a drama of it. And I wanted to get home. It was stout. I can't remember where I was. I think it was Stamford Hill where I was. And I thought, there's nowhere I want to be stuck in hospital up in London away from my family. So I got in the car, drove home, typically as you do with a heart attack. And then I went to A&E, and I told my wife, and again, coyly, I was like, she laughs at it about it now. She goes, I picked up the phone. I went, how was your day? Everything all right? She was like, yeah, well, why are you ringing me? Oh, no reason. I was thinking I'm having a heart attack.
Gosh.
She was like, you're just such a loser. But went to A&E, and the weird thing, the coincidence was, it still blows my mind, but coincidentally, and for no other reason, she didn't know about the heart attack. My mum, my stepdad, my daughter, and my niece were in A&E because my niece had hurt herself. Like,
God,
how
what a
often do you
coincidence.
ever see anybody you know? You might see some drunk guy think, oh, I used to go to school with him or whatever. But yeah, I walked into reception and I looked in, because I didn't really want to make a big deal of it. I just, you can probably tell my mindset. And I just looked and went, that's my mum. And I went she went, what are you doing now? I went, I think I'm having a heart attack. And then, end up having, I can't even remember what they call it, but yeah, they do a trop test, and the trop test said that there's been a severe incident on the heart. And basically I had a scare. They don't call it a heart attack. I can't remember what the terminology was, but there's scarring on the heart. So it has been damaged. It isn't to do with any of the arteries going in. They're okay. I had to wear a inside monitor for over 3 years, and there was nothing electrically wrong. So mechanically I was fine, electrically I was fine, but I had a heart incident, and at the time at 39, they didn't believe stress could cause heart attacks, which is crazy now because I think every man and his dog knows that stress can cause inflammation and can cause all sorts. So yeah, that's kind of that's that was the turning point. I think it's probably the right way of talking about it and the right statement. Stress induced heart incident.
Okay, questions for you then, because that is blowing my mind. I can't believe how much you laughed about it. Like I'm sitting there all like uncomfortable and you're giggling through it. I'm like, oh blimey, Dave, you're a different breed of man. But look, how did your wife feel at the end of it or during it? Because I can't imagine the panic that she was going under. You know, you got young children, I'm assuming the breadwinner. What happens in this situation? Like what happens with your wife?
So weirdly enough, I think there's a bit of denial. I don't really talked about it properly with each other. I think probably as a mum, she went into survival mode herself and was just got probably quite scared and just was sort of looking after the kids and just like, no, everything's fine, let's carry on. I think because we have such young children, they become the priority. It was my journey. I had to do. I dealt with it on my own, and maybe I chose that path. But it was, yeah, it was difficult. It was difficult because it's scary, you know. And I went to rehabilitation, and I was there with 60, 70-year-old men and women, and they're looking at me, 39, and I looked in good shape, you know. I would say martial arts, and I looked good, you know. And they were like, "What are you doing here?" I was like, "That." um, and probably about, I think probably about 5, 6 months, you know, you're not allowed to drive for a certain amount of time. And, you know, because they just don't know they didn't know what caused it. Like normally there's obvious signs, they didn't have anything. And they're like, you know, be careful when you're going upstairs, like, because that could trigger it. So I'm just anxious about all these first steps again. And we went to a wedding quite soon after, and you know, I was nervously having a glass of wine because I didn't know what could trigger it. And you know, it was all a little bit weird because it wasn't like having an injury that you could see. You know, if you had a damaged leg, you're gonna, oh, Bert's let me down or whatever. It was all internal, and it was all something that nobody really knew what happened at the time. So yeah, it was slow steps to recovery, which seems quite weird, really. But you know, I think you might have said on another podcast, you know, talking about, you know, mental health is you know, you can't see mental health. You know, if it's debilitating you can't, you know, it's not like it could be as bad as having an injury, but it's internal, so it's very difficult to see. And it's the same with, you know, having a heart problem like that. Yeah, the recovery was difficult. And I say the relationship with the wife was interesting, but I can understand probably where she was coming from.
Hmm. And then what happened with the company? Did you quit the company? And what did they say when they found out that what you went through?
I mean, everybody was just sort of, I mean, everybody was probably in disbelief. Um, I was a subby as well, so you know, there isn't much loyalty there, you know. Although they you know they did try and get me back into work, and I had another job after that, I think. Yeah, it was weird. It was just a weird period of my life, really, because what you want to do, and I haven't really thought about this until we were just talking about it. You want to get back to normal, but your normal was actually detrimental to your health. So it's actually, I think what I'd done was I got back to normal and then realized that normal wasn't good enough.
That's really interesting because it sounds as if majority of your life you've been a high performer and now all of a sudden you can't be.
Yeah, it was your frailties, isn't it? You're getting a frailty. You know, you're not. I don't think. I spent majority of my life in stress. I was in fight or flight mode for the majority of my life through not being my true self. So all of I'm used to have high blood pressure, I guess, and be in fight or flight, ready to go, and very heightened, very aware of everything that's going on, or looking at people, judging people, whether they're judging me, which has actually again become a bit of a superpower because I can read rooms really well. But at the time of growing up, it was more analysing whether the people were judging me. Um, so I was, probably stopped, probably for the first time, and I actually probably had people's sympathy and actually had people's support where I've never looked for it before. And that felt weird. Actually, I was vulnerable. I wasn't, I could probably start the path of being myself, potentially. It still took a long bloody time, longer than what you think it would have taken. It isn't just an epiphany. Right, okay, I'm going to wake up today and I'm going to do this. Because I think, like what I just said, I think that's really key. Like you crave to get back to normal, and then you realize that normal isn't good enough. So it takes a long period of time to get to that point where you left because that's what you want. I want to be back to normal. And then you realize that actually that's what killed me or potentially did.
So if you was to give advice to people in construction, let's talk about a few statistics around construction quickly. Construction has got the highest rates of anxiety, stress, and suicide, not just in the UK, but globally among all other major sectors. So
Mm-hmm.
when we just see that one statistic, what advice can you give from your personal experience to construction workers in such a high pressured industry?
I coincidentally brought this out.
What is that?
So this is a blood pressure monitor.
Okay. What does that do?
Now, have you ever had one?
No,
You've been to
I
a
haven't.
doctor's and that. You've never had a blood pressure monitor done?
Yeah, so is that the machine that
But,
clamps around your arm?
yeah. So it basically goes on your arm here,
Okay.
and then clamp it on there. You press a button, this inflates, and then it gives you
Yep,
your
yep.
BPM and your blood pressure.
Okay.
Now, this is the first telltale sign that you are struggling, I would say, because your blood pressure will tell you. And also, your blood pressure will tell you if you're struggling with any other health problems as well. You should have this in your house. You should have a spreadsheet and monitor your blood pressure because that is a quick, easy way to realize how your body's dealing with stress and pressure. If your blood pressure is running high, you've got to be careful. You stick to if it's too high, there's going to be a compromise with somewhere else in your body. So if you're aware of your blood pressure, then you can then potentially start doing breath work. Or like we spoke earlier, you went for a nice walk before this podcast. You start doing
Mm,
things like that in your life. People don't go and people get their blood pressure. I spent something the other day. They reckon probably once every 5 years, someone might have had their blood pressure done in a doctor's surgery. And what you'll do, and it's crazy. So you'll go in and you're stressed out because you've got some, I don't know, scratch on your privates or whatever, and you go into the doctors and you're worried about that or worried about whatever. You've stressed out about parking, you're stressed out about missing the appointment. You go and sit down and they go, right, relax, let's take your blood pressure. That reading is not how you should be doing it. You should be taking a reading first thing in the morning. You should take a reading just before bed, and then that over a week would then plot how your blood pressure is and whether there is something you need to start thinking about doing. These things cost 60 quid, 65 quid, and that could save your life. That could potentially make you understand your body a little bit more than just thinking, "Oh, I'm feeling a bit stressed today." Just get a blood pressure monitor, especially as you're only 30. Was it 32? I think.
yeah.
Yeah. So you're quite young. I'm on to say knocking on the doors of 50, so I need to take things a little bit more seriously. But I say that would be the That would be something physically you can do, that doesn't really lie. That is a real straight. And you get all these watches and these fancy apps and things like that, which are great, but there's always a little bit, is that right? Is that true? I think this is a really basic way of actually you monitoring your health very simply and keeping a track of where you are. You've got to do it all the time. I'll do it for probably 3 or 4 days, just monitor my blood pressure, check it's okay. I go for bloods. I actually go every 6 months for a blood test with the doctors. It's more to do with the fact I have had the heart attack, but my dad got diabetes, got latent diabetes late on in his life. And I know that I'm susceptible to sugar, which is why cans of Coke, coffee, and all that stuff really didn't help with my heart attack, because I spike really high with glucose. So I regularly go and get my bloods checked. But just be aware of your body. That's the physical things you can do, or looking at your physicalness. Just be aware, and regarding stress, I've got loads of other things for that and how to deal with management skills and tips and tricks. But yeah, that's the big one, mate. It's a simple one, but it's a really big one, and I don't think no one really talks about. Oh, got
Yeah.
flies. I live in the
No,
countryside, so I suffer with flies, unfortunately.
you're right. You're right. Okay, so I think we're coming up to a wrap, and I want to take you right back to the beginning. And you said something, and I wanted to ask you a question around it. You said the word principles. What are some principles, maybe one or two, or maybe your top three principles you live by day in, day out?
Um, be respectful. Everybody's got a story. You just got to find what that story is. It doesn't matter who you are. What color of your skin. What sexuality you are. Whatever it really doesn't matter. You have something in common with someone. Everyone. You just need to find what that common ground is, and you're only going to find that out is if you're respectful enough to ask people questions. Try not to have assumptions on people. Assume you're not going to like someone, assume they're this, assume they're that. Just be respectful. I say this quite often to the guys. You know, you never know who's going to be paying your check. So the guys that you think are little weasels that work for the client or work this or work around you or whatever it is, or even, even could be someone local down your road or whatever it is, you may need that person one day. It could be that they sign your check off, they might pull over and help you with a flat tire. You just never know when you need somebody. So yeah, just treat them with respect.
Bridges.
Don't, but I mean, we've all done it. We've all done it, and sometimes you've got to do it. Sometimes you've got to do it because you're starting to get damaged by that person. I say give people respect, but you've got to be strong in your mind. Sometimes it's just, if you've given them enough opportunities and they're still taking the mickey and they're not giving you anything positive back, cut your ties, walk away. Give them a fair chance, but don't be there where they're going to damage you, because there is only one you.
Absolutely. Now, Dave, where do people find you? How can people get in touch with you? How can people listen to your podcast? Where do people get you?
So I am the Always Learning podcast, and that's Better Managers, Better Lives. And the principle of it is that I've been on such a journey with management that I don't think there's enough support out there for managers. And I think there's a lot that can be done and should be done. I want to give managers or potential managers a helping hand so they don't fall down the paths that I've gone down. So I've got, I think very soon there'll be a 10 series podcast episodes, and they've beautifully and naturally just grown from me explaining my story, and then the next one we're looking about strengths and weaknesses and being authentic, because for the journey of progression, you need to know where your strengths and weaknesses lie. Then we go into, I've put together 38 questions within that people can actually ask themselves questions and, be honest, put it through ChatGPT afterwards, and it will tell you what the sort of person you are. Then we look at leadership traits, and I've got a really nice little journey. I'm stopping at the 10 podcasts for a while because I want to work on blogging and just build up the social media element, because I can't get my message out there enough to people. And at the moment, I think the message is really good and I think it's really important, but not enough people are hearing it. So I need to somehow get the word out before I do too many more podcasts. So yeah, it's the always learning podcast, and that's a nod to my granddad, who learnt to fly at 82 years old. Absolute legend of a man. So yeah, you're always learning. Don't ever think you're not learning. But yeah, that's where you can find me.
Love that. I'll make sure to put that in the bio. So if anyone wants to find you, I'll also put your LinkedIn in the bio too. Now, I've got my final question for you, Dave. How are you? This was a deep conversation. We touched on a lot of heartfelt things. How are you?
I'm good. I am good. I wish we could go on for another couple of hours, to be honest with you. I think we did. I think there's so much to talk about, and it really is about support. And I think there's so many people that get what you're doing and get what I'm trying to do. And there's a big need out there. I'm passionate about this path I'm going on. I feel like I've actually got some reason to be, and I need to build my business so I can financially do more of what I'm doing. I think it's probably similar to your good self as well. I've got a calling now. I feel like I've got something to push and drive for. And yeah, no, I'm very positive. I'm very happy. I'm happy with this journey that I've gone on and meeting good people like yourself. I don't think that we're not going to be strangers with each other. I think we'll be there to support each other, I hope. But yeah, I'm in a
Absolutely.
great place.
Yeah, I'm really happy to hear that. I just want to say a massive thank you for sharing your story, taking time out of your evening, and I just want to say I appreciate you, Dave. Genuinely, with all my heart, I appreciate you, my friend. Thank you.
No, it's good, man. It's good. No, and I appreciate that. And I'll send it back to you as well, mate. I mean, your story and what you're doing, and I do want to spend a bit of time with you sort of in the future, because I think there's a lot that we can work together with, because I think we're both on the same path. All we're trying to do is help people, and support people. And I think we can probably work together with it. And yeah, and I think you said to me the other day, if you can try and change or help one person a day, then that's enough, isn't it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thanks so much, mate.
No way.
If you've enjoyed this episode, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Honestly, the more people we reach, the more support we can offer. And don't forget, Onward Shift isn't just a podcast. We've got a number of resources on our website, so please don't forget to check out www.onwardshift.com, where you'll find counselors, keynote speakers, coaches, blogs, and so much more. Until next time, don't forget to keep having these important conversations.